clear signal has come from New Zealand First that they want action on issues over the treaty. And the person who made that call is the number 2 ranked member, now again Member of Parliament for New Zealand First, Shane Jones, and he joins us by phone now. Firstly, Shane, congratulations on returning to Parliament. The last time I saw you in the chamber, you were giving your valedictory as a Labour MP.
I seem to remember a big party over at the backbenches.
Yeah,
and
me
a host
too.
Of people,
vaguely.
Host of people needing lots of Nurofen the next day.
So, welcome back, and you're back with a vengeance. You have come out and talked about a treaty reset. What do you mean by that?
Well, look, thanks for clearing up that there's some firm demarcations around the negotiations, and we've supported Winston, our leader, and I'm sure they're making progress. I want to cut to the chase. Within Māoridom, we have allowed the mentality of victimhood to become an ideology of righteousness. We have allowed the proud foundation influences of lifting yourself up by lifting up your sight, your aspirations, and raising yourself out of the slumber. It is now regarded, that type of thinking, as both outmoded, outdated, and inconsistent with this woke-driven ideology of grievance and victimhood. It's frightening. We campaigned against it, and I've seen the evidence of it. Nowhere is this type of ideology manufactured more regularly than in the entity called Te Arawhiti, which is in a unit inside the Justice Department. And you need to remember, this went to the top of the regime, and it was called the portfolio of, I think, Māori Crown Relations. I fail to see why you'd have that portfolio any longer, because the challenge going forward...
Who held that portfolio, Shane? Because you're telling stuff, to be honest, that's news to me. To Arawhiti, who was the minister responsible for that, and what did it do exactly?
So Arawhiti is a Māori word for a bridge, and it's based on the philosophy of creating a bridge over a body of water, so it enables the two sides of the treaty to cross over the bridge and commingle and get together. The minister was Calvin, and what seemed to be, I guess, in his mind, a reasonable thing to bridge gaps and get on with life, has turned, sadly, into an opportunity for this entity called Arawhiti to generate and sustain a momentum to litter the public sector legislative landscape with more references to the Treaty of Waitangi in legislation where it has absolutely no relevance, absolutely creates no value, and it's done as a virtue signalling, woke, crazy habit. Now, this is also worsened by the fact that this entity in the Justice Department issued a circular, and that circular requires whatever the SSC is called now, the Public Service Commission. They now require all sorts of government departments to consult with this entity called Arawhiti as to how they build Māori units. Now, there may be a case for having skilled Māori civil servants in key areas. I know we need it in truancy. We need it in the egregious areas where there's ongoing negative outcomes for Māori. But we don't need it in this wide and indiscriminate fashion that it's grown. And those are the things that I think very few of us of the Māori world are willing to take on, but they need to be dealt to, and they need to be dealt to conclusively.
And you are sending a pretty strong signal, and I once again stress this is separate from the internal goings-on of the coalition negotiations, that you believe the people who voted for you and returned you to Parliament, returned New Zealand First to Parliament, believe this is an issue that needs to be dealt with, because I would say that National have painted a picture where this isn't such a big issue. polls tell us it does. All sorts of polling from all sorts of people tells us. The other thing, I just want to say, this is a major agenda item for New Zealand First.
If we don't, within Māoridom, if we don't change the orientation, the greater commitment to development, the greater commitment to economic growth, a contribution to expanding the size of our economy, then those of us who come from that end of the political spectrum are going to be overwhelmed by the priests and priestesses of this new cult of victimhood. And I say new because it's not how we grew up. And I totally accept that it has grown in stature and grown in momentum over the last 15, 20 years. But look, one of the motivations to come back into politics for me was not only to call time on it, but to ensure that we can channel the energy of the next generation of the young people towards a more integrated, cohesive approach to enlarging the wealth and boosting the sense of unity as Kiwis.
And I would make the observation, I was lucky enough to meet an awfully large number of young Māori people at your house at Waitangi weekend. And they weren't victims, they were young people with a lot of energy, young Māori with a lot of energy. It was a very interesting, for me, glimpse into their world. And I wasn't confronted by politically correct radical people. I was confronted by a young group of people who want to get on with life. Could I also ask, it would seem to me your positioning on this, Shane, apart from its uniquely you come from Māoridom position, which I think gives you a kudos or a mana, you and Winston, that perhaps other parties or other commentators don't have. There is a lot in common with what you say with the attitudes of the ACT Party.
Well, we've got our candidate, Casey Costello. She's currently standing in the Port Waikato seat, and for a long period of time, she has also sought to propound and amplify these perspectives, but they remain minority perspectives. And look, life's all about a journey, as you well know, Sean. And when we were young, our motivation was property rights. Many years ago, I used to be the chairman of the Māori Fisheries Commission, and that's about industry. That's about creating a battalion of young men and women who will go and create wealth in an industry and use the property rights to generate surplus. Because when you've got surplus, you've got choices. When you've got choices, you can do useful and exciting things with your lives. But if you're continually keeping your people down by feeding them a diet of victimhood, which is why I've got zero time for this group called the iwi leaders. A lot of them I know personally, and some of them I went to school with at St. Stephen's School. But when I look at a place like the Māori Affairs Department, we need to ensure going forward, and it's a challenge also, people of influence in Māoridom commit to development and step away from the rhetoric and the falsehoods of the victimhood mentality. Okay.